So good afternoon, good morning, and a very warm welcome to this launch of the ANCA Nature Executive Fellowship. My name is Kelvin Massingham. I'm Director of Risk and Resilience at FSD Africa, and we are very excited to be launching this fellowship today. It's a program which has been over a year in development, and which is a first of its kind in Africa. And so really excited to bring this to you and to launch it today. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you being with us this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are at. 3 years ago, FSD Africa embarked on a program to work with the financial sector in Africa to integrate nature into decision making, and to start to pilot the Task Force on Nature-related Financial Disclosures. And we started that program out of a recognition that biodiversity is incredibly important for Africa, for our livelihoods, for our economic development, for food security, and also a recognition that although we are blessed as a continent with a huge amount of biodiversity and natural capital, we are eroding it and degrading it at an unprecedented rate, at an unsustainable rate, and that poses significant risks to us in the future as a continent, and a recognition that the financial sector has a super important role to play as allocators of capital in determining the future direction in terms of nature in the things that it finances. And at that time, we also recognized that it was necessary to take an ecosystem approach to integrating nature into African economies. And so that was really the rationale for launching the African Natural Capital Alliance, which many of you are members of, which brings together various different players from the ecosystem. So not only the suppliers of capital, but project developers, the scientific community, other development partners, regulators, so that we can work together on integrating nature and making sure it's protected and restored. And as we worked with the financial institutions, it became even more apparent that this ecosystem approach was really important. What we found is, as we're working with large banks and insurers across the continent, that as they began to understand nature more, both the risks and opportunities, they were able to grasp the financial aspect of things, but there was a large gap in terms of understanding the biodiversity elements. And so while they could understand credit risk or counterparty risk, understanding biodiversity risk and its complexity, how to integrate and ensure that there was a credible biodiversity element in a project was something that was difficult. How to, they're not ecologists, and how to use the right sort of data, how to interpret it. These were all challenges that teams in financial institutions faced. And so it was really out of that this program has been born, a recognition that we need to build capacity in the financial sector to understand the more scientific, broader elements of this space, and to bring kind of the finance and the nature side together so that we can develop projects that are nature-based solutions that have both a commercial return, that are financially sound, but also that we can hold up to scientific scrutiny and can really claim that are increasing biodiversity and benefiting nature. And so that's really the reason for this. And so I'm really excited to bring you this program today. There's many other experts that are going to tell you more about it. But from my side, just wanted to really encourage everyone to apply. This is a program which is fully funded in this first year. And so it's a unique opportunity to be part of the first cohort of a program which I think is going to be hugely beneficial to those that participate in it. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll hand you over to Dorothy, who's the head of the Secretariat of African Natural Capital Alliance. Dorothy, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. Thank you for the great introduction. And I'll just ask that we move on to the next slide. And in the next few minutes, I'll take you briefly through the key features of this program. So Kelvin has outlined it. in terms of a program that aims to enhance natural capital and biodiversity leadership across the continent. Actually, our dream is to create a grouping of 20 nature champions every year for the next couple of years. The natural capital agenda that, as Kelvin mentioned, speaks to science and also speaks to finance. And so according to the vision and goals, we want to develop leaders who are well-versed in natural capital management from an African context. And we want to promote the development of impactful nature-based solutions. So essentially, who should apply? We are looking for senior executives who are looking to deepen their expertise in natural capital and biodiversity finance. So those who want to understand science in relation to finance and how to actually create solutions or market instruments that can support the cause. And we are looking for individuals who are ready to lead significant nature-based solution projects within the organizations and within their industries. So it's a one-year modular program with comprehensive training modules, throughout the year. So we launch today. We are going to be receiving applications for the next 1 month till the 30th of September. It will be a competitive process, and we are glad that many of those we are targeting are also within the ANCA membership. Move to the next slide, please. So the features of the program, as indicated, one-year modular program, we are going to have an immersive, actually three immersive residential sessions. And we'll have some specialized academic courses, of course, combined with the professional angle and hands-on learning experiences. So we aim to have our first session at the Africa Leadership School of Wildlife Conservation campus in Mauritius. This should be between the 3rd to the 14th of February. Then we'll have another residential session in the UK between the 12th and the 16th of May. And then between the 14th and 18th of July of 2025, we are going to select an African country, and we are going to take the team to through an immersive learning experience at a project site. We have a number of ideas on this, a number that we're looking at currently, and I think we've shortlisted around 5. But this should be within Africa, and it will be, again, a 1-week residential session within a project site. Through the 1-year period, we are going to be having weekly online sessions to guide the fellows through, their projects, and I'll talk about that very briefly. But we will have our mentors and the team from both Oxford and ALU, of course, participate in some of this, and we'll also have select speakers who will be brought in to support the program. I think one thing that we want to mention is a very structured mentorship process that we want to incorporate within the program, which will essentially support all fellows through the journey as they get onboarded, as they determine the projects that they're going to be working on, as they get to understand the technical aspects of nature and biodiversity, as they get to understand finance, because we're also opening this up to a few, from non-financial institutions, projects, scientific organizations who also need to understand finance. But as we take them through, then there'll be a structured process, a structured mentorship to take you through the 1 year. At the end of the day, and we hope to have our graduation on the 6th of September. I just need to check the date, but the Friday of the anniversary to the Africa Climate Summit. As you know, every September, the first week of September will be an Africa Climate Summit week. And so we intend to hopefully graduate during that Africa Climate Summit week, the Friday of that particular week. Next slide, please. So who's the ideal candidate to this program? We are looking for significant senior executives with significant influence. So essentially, by the time you are placing your nomination, we are looking for those executives who can influence their organizations into taking on board or developing nature-based solutions. For example, if we are to take a regulator, I'll just give that as one of the examples, then the person on board should have influence towards, supporting new ideas or regulations within the regulator. If it's a bank or an insurance company, then we're looking for a senior executive who can also influence decisions within that organization. At the end of the day, we are looking for specific impact measures, and that impact should ideally support Africa as a continent. And so by onboarding or by getting nominated, getting accepted into the fellowship, and then being taken through the 1-year period, we would expect that there are certain aspects that you're able to drive within, the industry you work in or within the organization you work for. The selection criteria will be very strong on the feasibility, strength and feasibility of the proposed nature-related projects. And so essentially that would be one way or one of the most important ways that we'll be selecting those who will participate in the fellowship. And of course, we are going to give priority to our ANCA member organizations. As we indicated to you when you got on board, we are working towards developing a good value proposition for your membership. And so having you on board, or of course, as an ANCA member organization, then gives you priority when it comes to, the quota that we have put in place for ANCA members. What will we require? We'll require your CV, we'll require a letter of recommendation and commitment, and I may say permission letter from the employer. As you have seen, it will take around 3 weeks of your time throughout the year. And these are 3 physical weeks, your physical presence. And so, of course, we need your employer, if you work for an organization, to actually give you the permission to have that time off. And of course, one of the key aspects is also just the commitment towards nature, the nature agenda, and the commitment towards supporting your project. I think one thing that you want to mention, of course, as with most applications, a motivational statement would be key, essential to explain your reason for participating in this fellowship, but more importantly, your proposed nature-based solution project, because that is a statement that we are going to use to actually, shortlist and then eventually interview those who will be successful into the program. In terms of impact, I want to mention a few aspects that we are looking at. What we aim to do is to have at least $10 million of capital mobilized through this program over the first, let me say, 3 years, and the amount expected to double in the following 2 years. So essentially what we're saying is that when we have organizations on board, we have banks, insurance companies, conservation agencies, project developers, the team that is going to make up this 20, the whole aim is to have them participate in the development of nature-based products or nature-based solutions that will lead to capital being deployed. And so that's a key target that we have. So essentially, if a bank participating is, for example, over time able to raise, to issue a bond, for example, or to issue an insurance company to develop an insurance solution, that would mean that we have actually played our role in supporting a really, really underfunded aspect, which is nature and conservation. As you know, the financing gap is quite high for Africa. And so this project or this program aims to find ways of closing that gap over a period of time. The community is very important, so we want to improve the lives of at least 1 million Africans over the next 5 years. We are starting, of course, with our 1 year, and so 1 year we also have a target that we've broken down. And so any aspect, any project that we will be supporting, anything that we do within this process should ideally lead to some community benefits. I think one thing, and that's why we are all here, is biodiversity uplift is key. When you talk about nature positive outcomes, anything that we do is for nature, for the benefit of nature. And so we are also aiming for clarity when it comes to projects, and we're aiming for a biodiversity net gain of around 10%. I know that's a technical term that I may be using right now, but should you get on board, you'll get to understand what that means. But what we're saying is we want to be able to say that through these projects, over a period of time, then we have had this impact on nature and biodiversity. Or we know, or we can estimate that we can have this impact over the next, couple of years, noting very well that some aspects of biodiversity impacts are more long-term. But we need to be able to measure at least from what we have. One other aspect is on nature disclosures and reporting. We want to, as we are supporting institutions through this, as we are supporting fellows through this, is to help them understand the role and the need for nature disclosures and reporting. And we can attest to the fact that a number of participating ANCA institutions already are making disclosures, either sustainability related disclosures in terms of nature, or some have actually committed towards early adoption of the TNFD. And so what we're looking for is to just build capacity of fellows and build capacity of participating institutions into making progress towards disclosures on nature, because what is measured most of the time will get done. And so that's why that is a very important aspect. I want to mention, in terms of the last thing that I want to mention, in terms of projects, we want to use this program as one that can also create a pipeline for projects that link up to a number of accelerator funds that are available, including our own Carbon Accelerator Program for the Environment, CAPE. So essentially what we are saying is that not only will you as fellows, successful fellows, be able to take part in understanding nature, understanding biodiversity, understanding finance, understanding projects, developing solutions, but then we should be able to pick projects, some of the projects that may come from this fellowship, from these participating institutions, and thereby create a pipeline for projects that could essentially qualify under CAPE. That's the Carbon Accelerator Program I've mentioned. We also have Biofin, a key partner of ours, and so they also have, aspects that they are running, and so abilities to link up to Biofin, and also abilities to link up to our own FSD. Africa has a natural capital fund, and so other than the accelerator fund, we also have a investments arm. And so to see how all this can create a leading pipeline towards all these, either funds or accelerator programs that exist. So I think I want to stop at that point. But before I leave, I'd want to say that one thing that we want to really emphasize through this program is that it's Africa context, Africa-based for Africa's problems. And so essentially we are developing African solutions. And so to speak to us, I want to mention one last thing, that we have Oxford University as one of the delivery partners to this. We have the African Leadership University, and we have their representatives here with us. We are going to have Fred Swanika, the executive chairman of ALU. Many of you may have known him, many of you may be following him, and he's going to speak about, the vision for nature leadership on the continent, and essentially the commitment of the ALU in delivering this program. And then we are also going to have Dr. Mark Benhofen, research associate in risk and resilience and analytics at the University of Oxford. University of Oxford, also a key delivery partner, and is also going to help us, understand how to build resilient systems through this kind of programs and through leadership development, even as it speaks about, the Oxford part. So I want to hand over to them. Welcome. I'm not sure if Fred is already on the call, but if he is, please feel free to unmute.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. Yes, I'm indeed on the call. And thanks for those inspiring remarks. We're excited here at the African Leadership University and the broader African Leadership Group to be partnering with Oxford University and FSD Africa to bring this program to the continent. You know, one of the things we've always believed in the African Leadership Group is that as a continent, we really need to play to our strengths and to capture our unique advantages. So when we created the different institutions in the group, the African Leadership Academy, African Leadership University, and now what we're doing with ALX, the common theme between all of them is really, how do you unlock Africa's potential? How do you develop a new generation of leaders who can transform the continent and allow us to address our big challenges? Yes, we've got many challenges in healthcare, with infrastructure, with governance, with youth unemployment and education. There are many, many problems in Africa, but we also believe that there are many, many great opportunities, right? We're optimistic about Africa's future. We believe that we can become the prosperous and peaceful and developed continent that we all want it to be, where people have a good standard of living and we can all aspire to reach our full potential. So when we created the group, we came up with a list of what we call the 7 great opportunities, right? And these are things where Africa is uniquely blessed, right? Where we should be one of the world leaders, right? So when you think about something like agriculture, Africa has the largest amount of arable land that has not yet been cultivated. We have abundant rain, abundant sunshine. We should be one of the world leaders in that space. Natural resources, gold, oil and gas, diamonds. We have a lot of natural resources. Nature, a natural environment, conservation. That's why we created a whole school of conservation. In our group, we believe that the creative industry, tourism is another one. So these are things where Africa is uniquely blessed, and we have no excuse but not to be the best in the world, right? So, we challenge the leaders that we develop in the group to pursue a mission, to take the skills, the networks, the talents that they have to solve these problems and to capture these opportunities. And so this program fits very well within the domain of a unique opportunity for the African continent. As we look at developing Africa, we need to say, what do we have uniquely that China doesn't have, right? That the West doesn't have. And nature is one of the things that is our biggest assets, right? We host a summit every year called the Business of Conservation Conference, where we look at how do you actually build a business around conservation, around nature. Why do we think that this is important? Because in Africa, when poverty levels are so high, we cannot think about nature as something that we preserve just for nature's sake. And that's good only for from an activism perspective. We have to say, how does it actually create jobs? How does it bring taxes to the government? How does it create employment? How does it bring income into communities? And so it's about capitalizing on the assets that we have. And I use the word asset because when you think of nature as an asset, you don't want to deplete it. You want to invest in it. You want to grow it more, right? The assets that we have are things that you grow, right? You don't deplete them because when you grow them, they provide you more income, right? Assets are things that are store of value that stay, for decades, and then you live off the income of that asset, right? And so this program is really saying, how do we use nature as one of the biggest drivers of economic growth in Africa? How do we actually, build a large industry from nature that can actually allow Africa to develop and to outcompete China because we have assets that no one else has, right? And so it's very, an exciting opportunity for us to leapfrog and build something that can really be transformative for developing the continent. One of our big challenges as a continent is that we have not historically added value to our assets, right, to our resources, right? So, talent is obviously another natural resource that we have, and we need to invest in it. We need to develop it. We need to think about with nature as well. How do we add value, right? And this, for me, comes to innovation, right? We have to reimagine, reinvent everything, and think about how do we come up with unconventional ways to really build an economy around the nature that we have. Right. So this is a course that is very jam-packed. You're going to learn a tremendous amount in 1 year, right? It's very much in line with our learning model as well at the African Leadership University, which is not theoretical, right? We believe in practical programs where you get to apply the knowledge. You're going to be challenged to put theory to practice. You're going to learn a lot from peers. It's very engaging, interactive. This is not a university where you come and sit in boring lectures all day, right? We challenge you to actually apply what you learn to solve real world problems. It's covering everything from how do you develop and implement projects to case studies on successful natural capital. You're going to learn about policies that can stimulate the nature economy, innovation, entrepreneurship. How do you build innovative ventures around nature? How do you think about risk and sustainable finance and stakeholder engagement and leadership of the sector, right? So if we're able to do this with some of the top professionals in Africa, as the previous speaker mentioned, as Dorothy mentioned, we get to create an African-centered solution that really allows us to bring the African century to life, right? And where, historically, when most societies have developed, it's been at the expense of nature. Nature has been destroyed in the pursuit of development. We can be the first continent where we don't destroy our nature in developing. We actually develop because of nature, right? When nature is actually one of the drivers of our development. And that's the challenge that I pose to all of you. And that's the great opportunity that we all have. So thank you. And, excited to have many of you partnering with us in this.
Great. Thank you very much, Fred, for those, inspiring words from you. We need to develop because of nature. And I think that has been a rallying call for those who've been, for organizations that have been participating in the African Natural Capital Alliance. Great that you have committed and that you have been highly involved as the ALU in developing the content for this. And so really looking forward, to the next steps. I want to then hand over to Mark. Mark, I had seen you earlier on the call. Please feel free to unmute. Immediately after Mark, then please prepare your questions. We are going to have a Q&A session. Fred and Mark will be on the call, and we'll also take you through. We'll be able to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dorothy, and thank you everyone for joining this call. My name is Mark Bernhofen. I'm a researcher in the Environmental Change Institute at the University of Oxford, and I'm really delighted to be able to give you a brief introduction to the Oxford portion of the Nature and Biodiversity Leadership Program. Next slide, please. So I think I'll start by quickly introducing you to the Oxford hosting institutions. So the program will be co-hosted by the Smith School of Enterprise and the Environment and the Environmental Change Institute, both of which sit within the School of Geography and the Environment at the University of Oxford. So the Smith School was actually established back in 2008 with the goal of bringing together public and private enterprises to tackle global environmental challenges. So the school has significant experience in developing and delivering these executive education programs and will really be the coordinating partner for this program. The Environmental Change Institute is an interdisciplinary institute conducting research on complex issues of global environmental change. And we have over 100 researchers working on themes including nature and resilience. And throughout the course, we'll really be drawing on this expertise to deliver our portion of the Nature Leadership Program. Next slide, please. So I thought I'd just quickly highlight some of the relevant research that the group is doing. So much of the research we do at the Environmental Change Institute, and particularly the Resilience and Development Group, of which I'm part of, is focused around understanding systemic risk and resilience. So we have four overarching research themes. One is around mobilizing more finance for resilience, adaptation, and nature. Another is around better understanding these systems through combined nature, climate, and economy modeling. We also do a lot of work on how nature and climate can be better integrated into fiscal policy and financial markets to promote systemic resilience. And obviously, throughout all this, policy and engagement plays a big part too. Next slide, please. So over the last year or two, our group has been very active, and we've authored a number of high-profile reports and studies around nature, and just highlighting three key relevant ones here. So last year, together with the Global Center on Adaptation, we published a report on financing nature-based solutions. And this was really taking learnings from investment managers and nature funds. Also last year, we did a lot of work together with the Network for Greening the Financial System on developing climate nature scenarios to help us better understand the macro criticality of nature for finance. And earlier this year, together with the Green Finance Institute, we did a lot of work on modeling nature-related financial risks for the UK. So throughout the program that we'll be developing, we'll be drawing on the experts that contributed to these reports, as well as the wider nature and biodiversity expertise throughout the University of Oxford. Next slide, please. So what does the program look like? So this is a very high-level overview of the program. Learning will be split over 5 days in person in Oxford, and each day has a different theme and will consist of around 4 hours of teaching. And around those teaching hours, you'll have plenty of time to network with both the experts and the other course participants, as well as to experience many of the different unique things that the University of Oxford has to offer. So the themes we've split the days into are, again, at a high level. In the first day, we'll really provide an introduction to concepts around natural capital and biodiversity. In day two, we'll dive into biodiversity leadership and its importance for biodiversity conservation and management. In day three, we'll learn about the economic tools that can be used for biodiversity evaluation and how these can be useful for decision making. In day four, we'll focus more on nature finance, nature markets, and the role of central banks, public and private financial institutions for financing nature. And then finally, in day five, we'll focus on how this can actually be applied in practice and explore how natural capital and biodiversity can be integrated into decision making. Next slide, please. So what we hope is by the end of the program in Oxford, participants will have obviously first gained an in-depth understanding of key natural capital and biodiversity concepts, as well as the tools and techniques for valuation and how these can be integrated into decision making. The course will also build leadership skills and allow participants to go back to their own organizations and make informed decisions around natural capital management and investment. The program is also a really great opportunity for networking and collaboration, with other program participants, as well as the experts delivering the sessions. And a lot of this sort of networking and collaboration will be done in collaboration with the Leverhulme Center for Nature Recovery, which is a big cross-disciplinary nature research center at the University of Oxford. Next slide, please. The course is also intended to be very practical and really to help participants go back to their own organizations and contribute to the development of action plans and project proposals to preserve and enhance natural capital in Africa. And we really hope that through this program, we can create a real community of change makers, which is what is really needed to have a real sort of systemic impact and drive change in preserving natural capital and biodiversity in Africa. Next slide. Oh yeah, so that brings me to the end of the presentation, and I just want to round it off by saying we're really very excited that we'll be able to be hosting part of this leadership program at Oxford, and we really look forward to hosting you here in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for your reminder on the change makers. And I think one reason why, and a key reason why we really felt Oxford should be part of this is because of the experience in developed markets. And with that experience, then I can dare say that we are happy to borrow with pride and, you know, contextualize what can work for us. And so the Oxford piece is a very, very important piece in this program. I would like to ask Mike Musgrave from ALU to kindly unmute and speak to us for a few minutes about the technical aspects of the program from the ALU side. Immediately after that, I'm going to introduce the ANCA team for a few minutes, and then we'll continue with the Q&A. But I can also see some of the questions also being answered on the chat. Please feel free to ask, and once we get to that session, feel free to unmute. Mike, over to you.
Thanks very much, Dorothy. I'm just checking that you can hear me okay. I'm not sure on my connection here today.
Yeah, we can hear you. It's a bit low, but we can hear.
Okay, that's great. So thank you, Dorothy, and welcome to all the participants today. It's great to see everybody here in such good numbers. And I think for me, this demonstrates the level of interest that we're seeing across Africa and really across the world in terms of the opportunities represented here by the natural capital space. And so I will be taking most of the sessions, the in-person sessions in Mauritius at the African Leadership University campus. And similarly to our Oxford colleagues, we've designed a program that is very practical. We're not many of us are working consultants in the space, of course, so we're not focused on an academic program that takes a whole lot of theory away and doesn't ground you properly. We're very, very much focused on the understanding that you are all working financial professionals, and that as you leave this course, you will move into making investments and deploying capital. And so the way we design a course is around the concept of a toolbox. You will walk away with a toolbox in the same way as a carpenter or a plumber might have his tools. These will be analytical tools, financial tools.
Sorry, Mike, I think we've lost you. Is it just me or we've lost Mike?
Yeah, we lost Mike.
Okay. Okay, so what we can do as we are waiting for Mike to come back on, allow me to kindly ask Biggie and Hosbon to introduce themselves. And then we are going to take on the questions, any questions that you may be having as we wait for Mike to come on board. Biggie?
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry. My name is Biggie Tangane. I'm the engagement manager for ANCA. We're really looking forward to launching this fellowship as well as introducing the first cohort. So we really encourage you to apply. It's going to be a really great program, and we're excited to welcome you all those who do make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Biggie. Biggie just joined us. He's about 3 weeks, about a month old. So welcome, Biggie. Even as you know, we onboard the team. Hosborn?
Yeah, thanks, Dorothy. And hello, everybody. I'm Hosborn Omukwaya. I'm the manager for FSD Africa's Nature Program, and I also support Dorothy in managing the ANCA Secretariat. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Hosborn. I think for those of you who are in ANCA, you've seen Hosborn you see him almost every week. I can see a number of questions. Mike, please just feel free to unmute when you have a more stable internet. I can't see you on the screen, but just feel free to unmute. But I can see a couple of questions, and I can see some have been answered. But if there's anybody who has a question, feel free to unmute and we'll be able to answer that. I think Wamboi is asking, does the fellowship funding consider gender? Yes, Hosborn, you want to help in that process?
Yes,
Thank you.
I just wanted to help you with, I think, some of the more recent questions because the earlier ones have been responded to. So Millicent has asked whether applicants must currently be working in Africa to be considered for the fellowship. Do you want to respond to that before we move on?
Yes, so Millicent, very good question. And we know we are creating global citizens and we really are for creating global citizens. But what we need to remember is that the impact should be felt within Africa. And so you can see that the projects that we are targeting, the lives that we are targeting to impact, the capital that we aim to mobilize or crowd in for these projects are in relation to Africa. And so therefore, it follows that Africa is the target country. And we do understand there are those who work from other markets, but they're working for African organizations or they're working for African projects. As long as the project or the organization is working within Africa, then that would be open. But just want to mention the focus is really Africa.
Thanks, Dorothy. The next question is the one you touched on from Wambui. Does the fellowship or funding consider gender inclusivity in the topics, especially on communities and what we call benefit sharing? For example, we are seeing CSR projects being referred to as community benefits in carbon funding.
Great.
Maybe respond to that first.
Yeah. And I'll also ask Kelvin to also support me on this one. I think one thing that we want to mention is that as FSD, the gender aspect is very key, comes out very key. And so whatever we are doing, then the gender and inclusivity aspects are top of mind. I specifically like your question on the issue of benefits sharing. From the experience that we are having, and we have a carbon lead now working with us. I think it's also coming out very clearly as something very important. And so whatever we are going to be doing, including clarity on understanding of nature-based projects, whether in this case, carbon projects that are coming off of nature-based solutions or nature, then all these aspects are key and are going to be considered. But let me ask Kelvin to also just put his thoughts to that.
Thanks, Dorothy. So I think absolutely, I think when we consider the potential nature-based project that you're proposing within your organization, we're also really looking at the social development benefits that project will result in. And so the impact on livelihoods, the impact on resilience, the impact on kind of social equity, are all things that we very much consider. As has already been mentioned, we want to leverage the asset that is nature in order to to benefit our own economic development and our own communities. And so that is a really serious consideration. And so projects that come with a strong angle on that will definitely score higher.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Kelvin. Osborne, any other?
Thanks. Yeah, there are a couple.
Okay.
So Robert is asking, what does the fellowship program offer for African project development firms? Is it primarily focused on finance professionals?
No. Robert, it's open for project developers. Of course, our big focus is financial institutions, but remember what Kelvin talked about. He talked about creating an ecosystem where finance can understand biodiversity, can understand science, can understand nature, can understand tech, and can understand all these components, including regulation and policy. And so we have opened it up for projects or project development firms, because at the end of the day, I think one thing that, another thing I really need to emphasize on is we are looking to see how through this network that we are creating, then could there be other projects that arise out of the institutions that, for 1 year we'll be working together through this program. And so if we are able to have project developers as part of the big banks or mid-sized banks that are participating, or insurance companies, then are there any cross-cutting projects? Are there any projects or collaborative projects that can arise out of the fellowship program? And so that's specifically why we are also opening it up to project development firms or project developers. So please feel free to place in your application if you are a project developer.
Dorothy, just to add on to that.
Then Elvis is asking if there is an age limit for the fellowship.
Osborne, just before we move on to the next question.
Maybe I can just respond to that and say that we are very inclusive. This is a very inclusive program. So we are not going to bar anybody based on their age. Then Bonfaz is asking,
Osborne,
does the fellowship admit members or employers from government sector?
Sorry, Osborne, Kelvin had a comment. I think you didn't hear. Kelvin, please go ahead, and then I'll take the question on government.
Great, no problem. I just wanted to come in on categories of applicants that we will accept. And so, as Dorothy said, we very much prioritize the financial sector, but as she said, project developers are very welcome to also apply. We definitely want to have representation from that space. We also encourage startups to apply. And so if you've got a tech startup that's offering a solution in the nature space, you're very welcome to apply as well. In addition to that, community organizations that are from the ground up trying to generate revenues, create opportunities for the community through nature, you're also welcome to apply. And then lastly, we would also consider, if you're a technology or data provider, you do MRV, that type of thing in this space, we would also consider that. And so we're opening up to a fairly broad range, because this is about developing the ecosystem, and we're also keen for there to be cross-pollination between the participants of the course, that you're learning from each other and sparking new ideas. Yeah, from most sectors, we'd be willing to accept applications. So yeah, please go for it.
Yes, thank you, Kelvin. And that goes to the question on members or employees from government. And so what you're looking at, policy is a big part of it. So if you are a policy maker specifically, within nature and conservation, a regulator, also, opening it up to you. So please feel free to apply. Carol is asking, can you change your project once the program commences? I think what is key is that the application should have a bit of clarity on a proposed project. So you will be onboarded based on your project proposal. That's a key part. But as you know, when you get on board, and you get to understand the program and you get to understand nature or biodiversity or the challenges a little more, then of course there could be space, there could be an opportunity to kind of tweak that project into one that, you know, fits into what you really, really now understand and want to do. So that is possible, but at the end of the day, what you're looking for is projects at the end of the program. So that's one thing that we can confirm right there. I think Osborne mentioned there's no age limit. I think after age 35, most of the time you don't qualify for fellowships, you know, so this is open. If you're 50, 55, please go ahead. We are inclusive. I can't see any other question. Please feel free in case I've missed any.
Unless now there's somebody who has a pressing question and they can just raise their hand and we unmute them. I cannot see any hand.
Great. So I think with that, just want to mention that the applications are now open. The email, the link or the email address, you may have seen it. And if not, it is going to be recirculated to you all. Please share the flyer, share the application link with your colleagues, with those you think can qualify for this. As indicated, the deadline for application is 30th of September. We will possibly take another couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks to review the applications, to, you know, to carry out interviews. There'll be an interview process, and then once onboarded, then, you know, we will begin the program starting February. I know in December we may have a call with the successful fellows. And in that call, we will be taking you through the details of the program and more importantly, you know, an understanding of your project highlights or project outline, so that by the time we're getting in February and then March, February, then May, and then July, the process is much clearer. So I think with that, I want to end with that. Thank you so much for joining us, and really looking forward to getting high quality applications from yourselves, and all the best to all of you who are going to place in their applications, and looking forward to the next steps. Thank you very much. Sorry, the video just ended, so feel free to log off. All the best. Bye.